What's up, Whittier?
Welcome to What's Up, Whittier, a homegrown podcast.
A podcast to showcase Whittier's businesses, personalities, and hidden treasures.
Hey everybody, producer Christine here. But I did want to let you know that this is part of our City Council Candidate Series. Early Election Day starts on February 22nd, and actual Election Day is on March 3rd. Here at What's Up Whittier, we believe in democracy and having an open forum for candidates to really come from the heart and talk about why they're running for office. So I hope you enjoy this series in the next few episodes. Thank you for listening, subscribing, leaving us reviews for What's Up Whittier. As you know, this is a free community resource to everybody. So we're here, we're interviewing our future representatives, and we want you to get out the vote. If you're not registered to vote, you can head to lavote.net to check your registration and register people to vote. If you know kids or teenagers that are 16 and up, did you know they can actually pre-register to vote? Definitely. So go to lavote.net and get people pre-registered. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to What's Up Whittier. You can follow all of our social media. Check us out at What's Up Whittier on Instagram and Facebook, at What's Up 562 on Twitter, and check out our new website, whatsupwhittier.xyz. And also check out all of our social media, the team. You can check out Remo the Realtor at remotherealtor.com and everything at Remo the Realtor. And you can follow Jessie the Architect at J2 Architects on Facebook, Instagram, and j2architects.com. But you can head over to christinesingerluna.com if you're interested in notary services, because I am a notary. Thank you so much, everybody, for following along with What's Up Whittier and for trusting us to bring you this type of resourceful information. Now, take it away, Jessie and Remo.
What's up, Whittier?
Dun, da, da, da.
Welcome, everybody. We're back at it again here, doing our city council and mayor series where we're interviewing all the potential candidates. And today we actually are getting into our mayor candidates. And today we have Louis Reyes, who's running for mayor 2020. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Jessie. I really appreciate it. Great to be here.
Thank you. And obviously, again, kind of remind everybody out there who's listening to our podcast and following us, we're going to go through the same questions we've been asking our previous candidates. Louis, so what is? I guess introduce yourself. Tell us who Louis is.
Okay, great. So I've been a resident of Whittier for 28 years. Moved in here, called my home. I actually followed my mom. I was, I think, about 21, and my mom moved in with my younger brothers and sisters. I'm the oldest of 8, and, I followed her. I was like, okay, I'm going to go be close to my mom. Back then, living on my own, it was easy to rent a room or rent a studio, so it was great. Loved the city, and since that time, my family has grown. 4 generations of my family now live here. My brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, and my brother just became a grandfather. So,
oh, nice.
So we, went through schools. I went to Rio Hondo College. Went to USC, studied public policy and management there, and just been really involved. I was one of the founders of the Whittier Latino Coalition. So we founded in 1999. And we, a lot of our goals back then was to increase civic participation of Latinos. We didn't see as much diversity in the city, commission, city council, the whole fabric of community of Whittier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as the years progress and our advocacies progress, we decided to do a California Voter Rights Act lawsuit. So that happened, I'd say, about 6 years ago. We advocated. I was the spokesperson. As you know, we ended up with districts.
Correct.
So around that time, for the last 10 years, just kind of been focused on family. Got married, have kids, really just focused on my children.
Mm-hmm.
have my business. As I worked 8 years in government, local government, in legislative and executive experience. Representing the area in the Assembly and State Senate here in the 2000s. And, one of the things when you have kids and family, I wanted flexibility, so I had the ability to, start my communications consulting. So I have clients, I have flexibility, and just really focus on being a father. I think that was really important for me to do so. And I had the experience and the know-how to, create a business that allowed me to have that flexibility. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much who I am.
Very cool. So in terms of profession, you say you're a consultant. But can you go into a little bit details of what that means? And
Oh, yeah. So I have, communications. So way back in college days, me and two of my best friends developed websites, right? So we always had that side gig.
Yeah.
It was great money back then. It was new. Did a lot of email marketing. One of our biggest clients back in the day was LPN, Latino Professional Network. So that we helped start that. Mm-hmm. Did a lot of work back then with Alejandro Menchaca. So I'm an SC alum. He's SC. So a lot of Bruins and SC people came together and created that. Overall, now, transition almost 20 years later, I do a lot of I work for labor unions. I do their internal communications. I do a lot of writing, media relations. I do outreach projects, work for developers, knocking on doors, getting their feedback, understanding what community wants in order to do community benefits with developers. Do campaigns. I do all types of different campaigns. I do political campaigns. I do issue campaigns. I contract with different cities to provide expertise, consultation, and also do outreach. So I kind of do different things here and there.
So it's literally communicating. I mean,
Yes.
you're the channel from one person to the other.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool. Very nice. And why do you choose to live in Whittier? What keeps you here?
Oh, family, number one. I love the fact that Whittier always had that small town feel. My family's here, and my family's very important. I had the opportunity to move away different times, and I just didn't like it. I just felt like I'm missing from home. So, again, I mentioned 4 generations of my family live here. And really what drives me is, what to do with my children and the future of their children. Because Latinos, we talk about people, and can we go back 4 or 5 generations and understand what is home? And I feel that building wealth and building longevity and having stability is really important, generational, for family. And Whittier's my home. I chose to make a stand for my generation and for generations that follow me. And I talk to my brothers and sisters, and we all agree, and that's why 4 generations live here.
Yeah.
And it's all about the future for us.
That's right.
So this is Remo here. Sorry for coming in late.
Okay.
I did have a question. When you left Whittier, where did you go to and then come back? What other cities did you?
Oh, I had this one thing, kind of heartbreak, kind of where I went, and I actually went on a presidential campaign.
Wow.
So I worked on Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. I ended up in Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Oh man, short of Nevada, man.
Right city, wrong state.
I know. Is it fun?
It was interesting because I tell people, it was like driving to New Mexico and, realizing that 2 million people live in that entire state and how much space. And, Las Vegas was a great little town because there was population, I think 12,000.
Wow.
It was so old. They still had the round style, Indian protection, the whole thing against the Old West. And it's famous. One of the things says we are where the Great Plains meet the south end of the Rockies and the Great Desert. It's interesting. It's very different culture, and I just got homesick. I was there for about 6 months. I did my job organizing. Had to bring people together. Had a great partner organizing out there, and I said, you know what, I'm going back home and organize in my town, and I did. And those are one of the places that I went to, and it just, yeah, you know.
Aren't there 2 million people in Whittier? Or it feels like it.
It feels like it, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So with that said, what are you? Why is it that you're running for mayor?
Okay. You know, I thought about this long and hard, and you know, it's difficult. You know, having been in the business, having been an advocate regarding the city for 20 years, I felt that when we did break up the districts, it was changing. The dynamic of the council did change. I mean, we felt that there was the council, the way it's set up at the time before Voter Rights Act, and was you couldn't get elected. There was no way. Now, you know, we saw diversity. You know, we see new council members. But what I didn't like, and what I've always looked at, I'm always observing as a policy person, is where is the city heading? And, you know, one of the main things that really I looked at is how people were being treated in terms of the homeless issue. I'm all about equity. I feel that equity and treating everyone with respect and dignity is key and vital. And things happened throughout the last year, and even since the homeless, like how people were treated as if they're not part of Whittier, they're not part of our community. That, you know, those people have to go, and I thought that was really unfair, and I think it was something that, you know, kind of riled up my social justice, you know, values of, you know, we need to treat people equally. So I decided. I mean, I talked to my wife. You know, we all know. And she's an organizer too, and you know, been involved. She actually works for First Day, so we know a lot about policy, and we talk, and we know what it takes. And it was a decision of, you know, I can make a difference. I know policy issues. I know I have the relationships, and I feel that, you know, things that I've worked on in the past is just a continuance of what I've done, but at an elected level. You know, been doing 20 years of advocacy, working for elected officials, building those relationships all of these years, that, you know, now is the time to take it to a different and really push the agenda. I feel that, you know, since being in campaign, you see the incumbents kind of steering more into a moderate policy shift than they were prior. So that's one of the reasons I was running.
Interesting. So do you currently serve or have served in any volunteer organizations that you think would help you towards your campaign or your position?
I've served in different nonprofits throughout the year. I'm all about service. Again, I was one of the founders of the Whittier Latino Coalition. We literally spent 15 years of my life, countless hours, like analyzing, advocating. I mean, we would meet with the police chief, we'd meet with all the council, we'd recommend policy. So that was just one portion. Mm-hmm. Professionally, I was one of the co-founders of what we call the Padrinos Leadership Institute. Back then, we felt that there was a void of leadership of individuals who were into public service and being involved in, you know, elected officials and such. I co-chaired that organization for about 8 years. You know, a lot of great alumni came out of that. The current Speaker of the Assembly, who is a local Whittier, right? Anthony Rendon was part of our group. The current Insurance Commissioner, Ricardo Lara, was part of our group. So a lot of great public policy people with really ethical tries and issue of social justice came out of that group. So that was two of my things. Locally, I was recently part of the treasurer of the Sustainable City. So, you know, sustainability is a big issue for me. And, you know, great ideas, great projects, you know, grassroots, you know, working towards making sure that, you know, a lot of our policies are sustainability and, you know, green and looking to the future. Because I'm always about, I don't look at Whittier's past and see how great it is. Because it wasn't great for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I always look at what can we do with the future and where are we at the present and how can we create a better Whittier. Yeah. And that's what drives me. And it was a great organization. I took a step back away given their current work, and I don't want to have any conflicts as mayor. I think conflictual and having that issue when you're serving in certain places, you want to take a step back. So currently, I'm on leave, but that's the gist of my volunteer organization. I'm really about serving. Right now, I guess I'm ASO coach and taking my kids to soccer games.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah, full-time job right there.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, but that takes skills, right? It's organizational skills, leadership skills. I mean, that's
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I had a question. With that said, what do you think the biggest concern, or that you hear from residents from the city?
I've been talking to people, going door to door, and talking to friends and family. I think it's consistent. The homeless issue and what's going on in public safety is key. I mean, I use my own experience. I go to Kennedy Park. It's close to my home, and I take my kids there and take them to Michigan, and I take them to parks, and the bathrooms are locked. And, there's been 2 times already in the last year where my daughter, she's 5, has to go to the restroom, and we couldn't make it, right? We're like, oh, my God, I don't know what to do. And that's really frustrating for a parent. And more so, knowing that my children have a bad memory of going to the park. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something I don't want to have, and I want them to have good memories. And I think that those are the issues that are concerning most residents is, let's deal with this homeless issue. Let's get our parks, family friendly. Let's have open restrooms. I mean, those are issues that I feel that's a common theme, and it's something that I wanted to address. So.
Well, with that said, kind of a next question on the queue here is, how would you address the homelessness? Because, like you mentioned, it's a big concern,
yes.
And and obviously a lot of people want to hear that portion of it.
So, it is a concern, and really, what drove me in the point of, something needs to be done is. In end of June of last year, there was a woman who was killed crossing the street at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday. She was homeless. She was a veteran. And nothing was heard about. You've seen on social media. It was right there by the green belt where they were camping out, and it was after that they were removed. And it really tugged my heart, mm-hmm. in terms of someone was killed and nothing was done about it. And I think that was completely wrong. So I actually read a lot, advocate on the plan. I actually advocate way back when first day, 20 years ago, I lived on Newland, right, and my alleyway was the Salvation Army, and they were doing first day, and I went to council and said, I support this. We have to have homes for people. We have to have places for them to go. I wrote a friendly neighborhood plan that drives my thoughts in July. It's 7 points of detailed of what things could be done. But first and foremost, I think that we should treat human beings with dignity and respect. I think we should have conversations. I think that this issue has been a wedge issue that everyone wants the same thing, but they're arguing over how to do it. And I feel that at the end, we want our city to have a place for people to find dignity and things. So first of all, we need emergency beds. I absolutely believe we need emergency beds. Now, emergency beds is complex because, is it families or is it single adults? Do they have drug addiction, or do they have mental health issues? So when people think about we need emergency beds, well, all these individuals, these different segments can't go into one place. We have to have specialized services. But for whatever reasons, the city just keeps on talking about it. And it's been talking, we had the homeless plan for about 1.5 years. We've been knowing about homeless issue for several years. We know it's growing. I think that we could remedy immediately is 2 things. One, get emergency beds. We have the winter shelter program, augment the winter shelter, make it year-round until we find some little bit of solutions. And there's some policy issues coming down from the state that hopefully will help alleviate the issue. Number two, we need showers. There's no public showers in Whittier. So even if you find yourself homeless, where do you clean yourself? Where do you bathe? If you're looking for work and you're living out of your car and you need to go to work, there's nowhere to do it. I actually, thought, and I think people do it, is like, well, maybe you buy the $25 gym membership and go shower at LA Fitness, right? Mm-hmm. But it's something that we should do because we need to provide our neighbors, our people that are homeless in Whittier, the ability to have some self-dignity. And being clean not only is someone's self-dignity, but it's also a public health issue. So those are some of the ideas that I believe that could be implemented in regards to that, even though it's a very complex issue.
Yeah. And again, we're just trying to hear kind of what you're kind of the way you would see it or kind of go about it. Not necessarily going into exactly how you would do it, because like you said, that is lengthy and obviously it's very detailed. But thank you for that. The next question is, what would you do or what is your plan on retaining or attracting local businesses in Whittier?
Okay. Well, I'm a business owner. I'm a fourth-generation business owner. My family has always worked on their own businesses, and it's tough, right? Business is tough. I've been in working for my family in my teenage years when you can't make payroll because a big check bounce and you're like, what do I do? Okay, we're not going to get paid. Like, we're going to pay our staff so there's things that happen. Business is always difficult. So what would I do? I think that one of the things we need to do is look at our ordinances and see how do we adapt the ability to increase entrepreneurship by home-based businesses. It's in growth. I looked at that. I work from home. I recently got an office, and I feel like, I do consulting, so I don't really sell product. But I do know that a lot of people are selling product. They're like putting things up on Etsy and, on different, eBay or whatever and selling and creating market. What we should do is encourage entrepreneurship in that respect and allow people to maybe store product in their garages, right? Because right now we're not allowed. Mm-hmm. You look at policies that encourage this and support it, whether it's through the library. I think the library, there's a lot, I know there's a lot of talk about co-working, but in other cities they have private meeting rooms, they have full copiers, they have whole things that support entrepreneurship. We need to look at that and do that and change ordinances. I feel that those are some of the ideas, and we really shouldn't be sticking to big box retail. I mean, that, as we know, a lot of major retailers are going bankrupt, shutting doors. I mean, we're counting the time that Sears is going to go down. And what are you going to do with all that space? We have to be unique and look and see, how do we create this space that we know is going to coming down the pipe? And there's no discussion about that. It's like, let's put on our blinders and not look at it. We have to look to the future, and that is the future. I've seen that, creating community space, all these retails where they're making smaller, subsections so that people can do business. We can do incubators, right? So you can partner. We have 2 colleges in our city. Let's create a business incubator program and use these spaces that are soon going to be available to create businesses. So those are some of the ideas. I feel that business is changing, and we need to adapt, and adaptability is important.
Yeah. No, it's huge. What would you do, or how will you address housing needs?
Housing. One of the things that here is we have housing crisis everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. Where we live in LA County.
California,
yeah, everything, right? People are like, wow.
Not Las Vegas, Mexico.
That's true. We need to look at different ways of doing housing. I believe the ADU is a good step. I think in my plan, I said that we should do 500 ADUs within the city. Oh, wow. I mean, that's a long-term thing, mm-hmm. but I think when you have goals, then we can look at it and say, okay, how do we do that, and can we do that? Because right now we talk about ADUs, but we don't say, well, what can we really do?
Yeah.
So once we put a goal out there and they say, okay, is it feasible to do it? Because then we have staff do analysis to see, okay, what's the feasibility to have this many, and can we? I think that we should have more work with the developers and have a little bit more non-market rate rents. I mean, I work with a developer. I know that the city, in one of the developments that I worked on, said, we don't really want to talk about non-market rate units, and the developer was willing to give a few to get his CUP. I think we have like 24 units in Whittier, right down the street on Pickering and
Penn.
Yeah, those are the only ones that for low-income families, really rentals. We need more, and we need to work with developers to create community benefit agreements. I mean, even with the Nellis development, I think we should have better outreach. I mean, I've done outreach. I know that it's pretty the norm in other cities to do outreach, but I think the city allows it to just go market rate. Like, let's go without having discussions, without having community interaction of how is this going to affect our neighborhoods. Because then the number one thing is traffic, right? Oh, development's going to come up. Oh, we're going to put this. Well, traffic. Well, traffic is, it's not about the development and traffic. It's about, well, what is the public transportation to meet that traffic?
Yeah.
We don't talk about how, because we need more housing. There's no doubt. Other things in regards to housing, we lost our SROs, our single room occupancy here in Whittier. Right here, the Bright Hotel?
Yep.
Was it about 120 units, and the one here on Greenleaf?
Yep.
Those are needed. Those were used. Yeah, they were going down, but we need to find ways because people would live in those areas. Small, single units. Like me when I was in my 20s. I would live there. Okay, I'll share it. Okay, if it's affordable and that's what I can afford, I'd go. Where do people go now? I mean, if I would have moved in 1991 is now 2021, I couldn't live on my own. Back then, I could. And what does it say about our younger generation?
Stay home.
Yeah, exactly. We stay home.
And I think that's what's happening too. I mean, that's right.
Yeah. So those are some of the issues that I would address and recommend policy, because for me it's what is the will of the people, and I feel that as an elected public official, you want to have conversations. I really don't like just having that 3-minute give me your opinion during my council and buy and we'll consider it. I think that conversations are, as a communication privilege, are two-way. And when do you have two-way conversation regarding these big issues that the city is doing? Well, I believe in town halls. Like, let's have a town hall. Let's use the internet. Let's interact with people. Right now, our modes of communication at the city is one way. You get 3 minutes or 2 if there's too many people. Yep. It's not right.
Yep.
And I feel that we should have more two-way integration. And those are the way that you build community. Yep. It's having conversations.
So obviously, it sounds like you're for development in terms of housing.
Yes.
Whether it's kind of like what you said, apartments, affordable housing, or non-market rate apartments, ADUs. You mentioned that. I love that you brought up the option or the idea about single-room occupancies, because that's one that I don't think has been talked about at all. So I come from doing projects out in city of LA, offices where at one point we were doing mixed use, but it was about that. It was about trying to be able to create something that's very efficient, and that efficiency translates to how much is it going to cost to build the project. And I know we're having this conversation earlier about a developer. I mean, a developer looks at it cost, right? I mean, how much am I putting in? How much am I going to get in return? They're not in business to lose money, right? And so for them, they look at it at different ways. It's not just the money that they're putting in, but also the resources and in the time, right? And so once you add all that up, if you're building units that are say 1,000 square feet, but the market is not there for 1,000 square feet, then the next thing you got to look at is, well, what is that efficient size? And I think SROs are perfect for kind of like what you just said right now.
Yes.
That we're seeing a new generation of kind of homeowners or slash renters, I guess, who that works for them perfectly.
Yes.
And it's a different type of living style, but it works. And cost-wise, it just makes sense both from somebody who's paying into it, but also somebody who's investing into it. You're right. I mean, the last two buildings that were here are no longer here.
And that leaves a big gap in housing needs.
And it's a certain population I think you're attracting, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned that we have 2 colleges here nearby. I mean, you talk about perfect candidates for this type of homes. Mm-hmm. Or living style, right?
Yes.
It's interesting. I mean, I don't know what your take is on that, Remo, but it's.
I have a few different takes on it. So the first is outside.
Well, Remo sells homes, so I don't know.
Yeah. Outside of the United States, this type of housing is very common.
Yes.
Where, I mean, in all other countries except the United States, I think there's sometimes too much government that says it has to be a certain way, and that obviously creates red tape around that. So I get that. I think the single, as a member of the community, I think sometimes as a person not knowing much about them, I think they might bring a negative stigma to them, where people think, well, what is that is it gonna turn into something else? And it just, I don't know. So because I have personal experience, we were selling the land where what was it called, the Village Inn?
Yes.
The one on Greenleaf. So I mean, I saw that place come down, and so. It's actually right there in Jessie's wall. So that was the rendering of that space. And so I have, both feelings. I'm obviously pro-housing. So anytime something can be built, and obviously as an investor, you always look at, well, what am I putting in, like you mentioned, and what am I getting out? And when you have to build these 1,000, 1,200 square foot, 1-2 bedroom apartments just because that's what the code says, but it's not practical, then it's time to challenge what are the needs of today versus what are these codes that were written years ago.
And I certainly agree with it, because this type of housing isn't new. I mean, it existed in the 1800s, as you mentioned. It exists in other countries. Yeah. It was pretty common, and it met the needs. I mean, even with the co-op, where you can buy, if you're talking about renters and what's going to, that's a vision based on properties that have not been maintained for years and low level. But what about co-op? Let's build those buildings, and you have owners and you own your co-op like a condominium. But then there's these shared spaces that you kind of have that ownership right, and those are other things that that discussion I don't believe is happening in council. Yeah. That how do we address this housing issue that is not going to disappear until we build?
That's right.
And what are the different options?
There's a co-op project on Beverly, by the way. So when you do that turnaround, or that where you make that slight right, slight left, depending on which side you're coming from, right there, it's I think a 200 unit co-op building.
Okay.
Yeah, right next to the new construction on Beverly.
Interesting. I just want to point out that obviously this conversation is kind of, I think, going back to what you just mentioned earlier, that we all kind of look back at the past, right? Yeah. At the history, and we all kind of glamour or look at it as like it's sacred, and we should stick to it. But we're not really looking at the future and how we should start setting ourselves up for that. I mean, this is one, I think, idea or topic that I think we really need to look at, because you're right. I mean, the way people are living nowadays, I mean, your yards are getting smaller, homes are getting smaller.
Ride share.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
parking is not as
cars are going away, and or not going away, but you're driving less, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I like that you mentioned that and how this ties in together. We'll move on to the next one. The other one is how would you address crime in the city?
I'm really big about community policing. I think the biggest deterrent of crime is having an active presence in your neighborhoods. Those are, it goes back to the broken window effect. It's a policy issue that you talk about, and it's pretty famous. It's like if there's a broken window, it attracts negativity. And that's the same way when you develop policy in graffiti or any other issue, is you want to maintain cleanness. And I think we're seeing that in an odd way in homelessness, right? It's the broken window effect. Do the tents and things bring other people and attract other people? And it's been, scientific. It's been proven, and we need okay, how do we fix this? At the same time, we have a budget issue. Sworn officers are really expensive. And we're dealing with a budget issue at the city. I feel that as a community organizer and knowing policy, the easiest way to fix it is to build community and get a very strong, robust neighborhood watch program. Now, people will say, well, neighborhood watch is difficult. But when you put resources into it, then it becomes it works pretty well. Right now, you have to rely on me as, homeowner or, resident to say, you know what, I want to organize. And then you call the PD and they're like, okay, well, here, this is what you do. You organize your neighbors and call us and we'll show up. And it's a sworn officer. It's one person that's really working on it. I feel that we can save budget. We can be proactive if we hire non-sworn officers like community organizers to go and say, you know what, your duty there is your public safety coordinator of the neighborhood watch programs. And your job is to organize neighborhood watches in communities, make sure they meet, to give the residents the help they need, empower the residents so that they can help police and find out what are the issues in their community, because they're always all different in each neighborhood.
Yep.
And we're going to communicate with the sworn officers and use their time effectively when we need to address crime issues and law enforcement issues. And that's my idea. I feel that, talking to residents and talking to people, let's use our resources efficiently, but also smart in a way that, let's look at traditional things that work and let's augment them. Let's make them updated. Let's use technology to communicate. And it's our police officers work really hard. And you hear they're answering all these calls all the time. Well, let's empower residents to, some of the things that could be worked out where we don't need to have a sworn officer come and deal with something. Let's, again, use our efficient. I think that that's a way to address, and it's been proven to address, crime, whether it's break-ins, stealing, bicycles, stealing packages off people's doorsteps, all that. Those are ways to address it.
Well, I agree. I tell you, my wife is the best neighborhood one. I say that because anytime
she's hired, tell her she's hired.
So just a personal example of how that happens. So we're close with our neighbors. Mm-hmm. So anytime there's a vehicle parked, my wife is out the window looking at it, texting our neighbors, is that someone you know? And should we call the cops? And just, pretty, I hope she's not listening to this, but, and then the other, the use of technology, I think obviously brings the community together, and you can disseminate information quickly and share it. We're on Nextdoor and on the Ring app, and that I'm sure it was intended for that. Whatever ends up happening, my personal use is it's Coyote Watch. And I live in an area where there's a coyote every week. So,
but you're absolutely right on that point. But imagine having a professional from the city managing it.
Yeah.
Then you don't allow just everything happening. I'm on Nextdoor too, and I invited my neighbors, and then you see these interesting discussions of, oh, this person's just walking through the neighborhood. I'm sure I'm getting called on Nextdoor and stuff because I'm going knocking on doors and asking, and I see the ring. I feel like, hey, look, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything.
You just got to give your presentation on the Ring app because that's what it comes to.
Yeah. So no, but that I feel that building community again goes back to helping address that without going into the big expenditure. I think that the police and law enforcement is something that we need to address. We're growing our city, right? More housing, more growth. Well, we need more law enforcement, which means we need more budget.
Yep.
And how do we look at those policy issues and be effective, but and increase our quality of life, while at the same time live within our means. And I think those are important issues.
We had a conversation, remember a year or two ago, about Uptown. We had a conversation about the homelessness in Uptown, and just not even the homelessness, but sometimes I call it the riffraff, the people that are up to no good, that you know that they're looking for an unlocked car and so forth. And we kind of not decided, but the conclusion was that if you bring housing to Uptown and you get someone that comes down from their apartment, assuming this is an apartment, who walks their dog and they're more vigilant about what's going on, that tends to just kind of, then you get the next person doing it, and all of a sudden it's no longer acceptable to have that broken window, let's say downstairs, because then whoever hangs out here is no longer hanging out here.
Yeah.
So the community policing, I think, is something that's huge.
That's needed, yeah. We talked about, obviously, staying within budget. The next question is, how would you address long-term financial stability for the city?
Okay. Well,
and I know there's a lot of there's a lot to it, but if you could just give us your kind of take on how you would look at it.
Well, one of the things, when I worked for the state senate, I was hired in as a consultant to manage the budget crisis that we're dealing with because of the Great Recession. So I really knew about the budget. I knew what happened. I was the point person to go into the different cities within this area and school districts and talk about budget. And people were really upset back then. We cut redevelopment, right? The state got redevelopment, which was a big mistake, and I think we need to bring it back, especially address our housing issue, because that was a great tool for cities to use to build and use incentives for developers. But given that, the city has known that this has been coming down for a long time. I mean, they were prudent enough and the council to save this rainy day fund of the CalPERS fund, right? So we have some reserves. But, one of the things I've seen in the past year is this really, and I'm going to say last minute, we're going to cut the entire park staff. I don't agree with that. I think that was completely wrong policy issue, and I feel that was just a reactionary. And again, it goes back to looking at the past and reacting to what's going on rather than planning and making the cuts slowly and doing things prudently. If we do need to look at our staff, whether it's parks or whatever, and see what do we have here, what do we need, what can we contract out. One of the things that we do that I've seen, and I know I've seen in other cities, and I don't believe we have here, is having a full-time grant writer. Let's look for grants nonstop. I know there's grant writers who contract out, and they don't get paid unless they receive the grants. Mm-hmm. So there's ways of getting monies out there, not using our paid staff and the people within the city, but let's incentive. So those are one way to get money. Another way, I sit on the Sustainable City Board, is let's look at green. Let's look at. I would love to take the city and all their facilities off the grid. Let's generate our own power. Let's put solar everywhere. That would save us so much money because we're going to have to pay for that. Mm-hmm. We're generating our own power. And maybe at one point we're generating enough power we can resell it. Now it's become a revenue, source. I'm a CalPERS person. I understand the CalPERS issue, and I definitely don't believe in pension spiking. I feel that executives who are about to retire get their little bump to get their, max out on their pension. I don't agree with that. It's great for that individual, but what is it great for the greater good and taxpayers?
Correct.
I think that I know it happens. I've seen it happens. I don't agree with it. If you know that you have a contract with an executive who's making $175,000, $250,000, and you're going to spike him up so that he max out, that's wrong. I would have issues with that as mayor. I think that they get paid pretty good.
Well, as a resident, I think it should be a concern too, right?
Yeah, and they get paid pretty good. You're an executive and you're on CalPERS for 30, 35, whatever, how many years. You're getting paid over $100,000, $150,000 on your retirement.
Yeah,
and that's good money on retirement. Mm-hmm. And I think that those are issues that I would look at and address. I'm not about, again, looking to the future, planning, making changes and shifts according to our needs and staying within our budget. Definitely advocating for the state. I mean, I've worked for the state. I think that getting money in to help us within our area, there has a surplus. And when I was talking to a friend, I'm like, why don't they just give it back to the residents, the taxpayers? Like, now we're like, we have this big multi-billion-dollar surplus. Give it back.
Yeah.
Like, it's not your money. It's surplus. You paid for what you need.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to address homeless and housing, you're not going to bring back redevelopment, then send it back to the taxpayers.
Yep.
Let them spend it.
Yep.
Right? Those are things. So then what spending begets revenue into the coffers. So those are some of the issues in terms of long-term financial stability. Again, it goes back also to increase entrepreneurship, supporting their new way of doing things online and selling, because everything adds up. I mean, they collect sales tax.
Yep.
You're paying sales tax. Where is that? So if I'm selling oranges that I grew in my yard on Instagram and Etsy, whatever you sell them, and I'm have to pay sales tax on there, that's revenue.
Yep.
So why not support it?
Yep.
So those are ways that I feel that we can address the long-term financial stability. Is we have to look to the future, we have to adjust, and we have to mitigate any challenges we foresee.
Very cool.
I was going to say take half the budget and go to Vegas.
Go buy Las Vegas, New Mexico.
No, not New Mexico, the one more west. All right. Now we have a couple local questions for you here, and these are going to be the ones that really get people in trouble. So I want to make sure that you think hard and long about this. And so, what do you think is missing in the city? Maybe something that you drive out of the city for.
I know this for a fact. We are missing soccer facilities. I am really disappointed in. We have 2 great programs in Whittier. It's like amazing, right? We have 2 soccer programs. Families, and we end up by the end of summer playing on dirt, right? You go to other cities and they have the turf and the soccer, and these are nonprofit, private-public partnerships. Great programs.
Yep.
Why don't Whittier have it?
Yep.
And I think it really goes down to leadership.
Yep.
And where are your values, and what are you really representing? And for me, I have 2 kids. Again, I want them to. These big organizations haven't created from nowhere. They've been here for years. So why haven't we addressed that?
Yep.
So that's one missing. I think that not really else. I'm in dad mode right now. So
you know what? And it's interesting you say that, because you would think that most people that we ask, like, why did they come to Whittier, or why did they decide to stay in Whittier? And it's usually because they were building a family, and so they wanted to raise a family where in a better community and so forth, right? And Whittier was a perfect place. But it's interesting that just what you said right now about not having facilities to be able to do recreational sports like that for a family, it does not make sense.
Yeah.
It's like, if people are moving here for a specific reason, why don't you tailor to those families? So anyways.
Well, I always ask, why in the shuffleboard court on Broadway, no one uses it? Why don't we put a basketball court there? I've talked to council members about that. I've talked to people like, why is that there? That's just like a misuse of our facilities. Put a basketball court there.
Because back in my days, we used to play shuffle.
Is it because it's historic?
Is it? Well, it was an interesting answer. Someone said, "Well, yeah, Louis, people will be upset if we get rid of that." Like,
wow,
no one uses it. Like, it's holding down back to that memory of what the 60s or 70s when people were playing shuffleboard. Like, that's unused property, and we should use that again back for families or people who want it. And ask the neighbor, "Hey, we have this piece, this recreational area. What do you want to do with it?" Whether it's basketball. I mean, I know the tennis courts are used a lot. I know we did the Kaboom, and that was a great project to facilitate that small little park, that Broadway Park. But let's think about these things, and let's like, how do we make families? Because I know that a lot of people are selling, and there's families moving into that neighborhood. And my kid went to the preschool right there, Lad and Lassie, and it's all about families for me. So I'm definitely in dad mode and what we're missing and what we're doing.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Well, as we're still in dad mode, what are some of your go-to spots here in Whittier? When you maybe a place you like to frequent often? Yeah, eat.
Where do people find you?
Yeah, one of the things. So in the 90s, did my 20s, I was all over the place up here. I think now I'm looking for kid-friendly things, right? So Friday evenings when my kids are all happy, I'm at Brick House, right? They get the slice of pizza and the little drink, and they're all happy. Instead of me ordering a big old pizza and having all this leftover pizza in the fridge, it's like, so go to Brick House. That's very cool, and they're very happy. They like going to the games and doing that. I like Azabu. I've always been going to Azabu for years, and that's like one of the spots that I'll go and just chill and have a meal with my wife and kind of hang out. Parks, I think that's why parks are important. Again, my kids, right? We're going to go to the park. Oh, they're all excited. Oh, we're going to walk the trail. So these are family-centered activities that, that's taking up my time right at this point in my life. And then shopping, again, I'll do my own personal, because I love vintage and antiques and stuff. So I like to go to King Richard's. So if I'm like, okay, I want some me time and I'm going to hang out and wander around for an hour, I'm going to be at King Richard's and just kind of browse and
Have you ever bought anything at King Richard's?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because it's good to go look at stuff. But
That's the reason why King Richard's still in business, because of him.
I'm sure people buy stuff, but I go in there. I've been in there a couple times, and you don't see anyone. You just see the stuff, right? It's almost like part museum, and part like you might get someone there that'll sell you something, but it was different than what I thought going into it.
Well, it's all, for me, not only do I like the old stuff, but I also think it's reuse and kind of like not going to the consumerism of always buying something new.
Yeah.
I bought my father-in-law, and I'll share a story, what I bought recently. So my father-in-law is from Jalisco, and he was a cowboy. I mean, literally, there's a photo of him with on a horse with a sidearm and cowboy hat. But he's a 6'1", blonde-haired, blue-eye from Jalisco, right? And so I said, I'm going to get him something cool, So I looked, and I found this awesome ceramic mid-century 1960-something bull. And it had, like, the layered gold and I said, I was all excited. I was like, "Oh, this is a fine. He'll love
you said
it."
Bull, like a bullhorn,
like
or
a bull, like
okay.
a ceramic bull.
Okay.
That was like green, and that '60s green, but with gold and like tan. So,
what bull is an animal bull?
Yeah.
Okay.
A bull, a toro.
There you go.
And I got it from. I was like, so that was like something that.
Yeah, very unique.
Yeah,
very unique. Great condition. He loved it. I was like, okay, yeah. So those are things that I'll buy gifts or I'll buy something for myself. Yeah. My kid is all into the Hot Wheels, so we go to the Hot Wheels store next door and kind of search around. They had their 50th year anniversary last year, right? So we were all like, Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I'll do, and I think the character of Whittier is always changing through my different, because through the 30 years that I've lived here, it's always switched, right? So I mean, I remember both sides of the equator bookstore where they had the Latino bookstore back there, and Tim was there, and that was the 90s. So it changes, it's dynamic, and I think that there's a little bit for everything in Whittier.
Yeah, very cool. So, Louis, with that said, where can people find you on social media if they want to know a little bit more about you, and how do they kind of contact you? Do you want to give us your
Okay. Well, so I'm pretty much an open book on, Louis Reyes, Whittier, all kinds of information about me, always been as an advocate. Louis Reyes on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Pretty much, I think my Facebook page for the mayor is Louis R. Reyes. and louisreyes.org for my website. So it's pretty simple.
There you go. So we'll put that in our show notes. So if people want to follow you, they can look that up again. But again, I guess
A quick question.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's too early for this, but are candidates already putting together meetings where they're meeting the community? Do you have any of those maybe coming up in the future where you want to?
Yes, I'm doing some meet and greets. I usually with residents home, and the residents invite their neighbors. So it's kind of like, I think my next one, it's actually, so I asked them, like, do you want this public or not? And it's really their decision because they open their private home for it.
So if someone wanted to open up their residence, they would contact you and they can gather.
Yeah, I love to talk to people. I love talking. I'm kind of private overall as an individual, but when I get into small groups, I like open up and I talk, and I really love to hear what people's interests are, and my vision of Whittier and as the mayor, and I think that those are great conversations to have during election times, and hopefully they continue after election times. Those are important.
Awesome. All right.
Louis, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Great.
We wish you the best. And when you do become mayor, we'll have to bring you back.
Okay. Love to have it. Be there.
And with that said, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Whittier.
See you later, Whittier.
Thank you. Bye.